Ohio, like West Virginia, are getting Medicaid funding. This is going to take that away.
George, the president just this year signed into law a bill that provided $213 million in opioid funding. Next year's budget includes another $811 million. In addition to that, in the Senate bill, there's a very important feature that we've heard from Democratic and Republican governors is important to them. It lifts this restriction that really has impeded in-facility treatment, recovery treatment, and addiction treatment, because there's been this per bed, they count the number of beds and decide whether you can get Medicaid funding for opioid treatment. The Senate bill would do away with that. It's a huge step forward. I also am very involved with Secretary Price at HHS. We're traveling around this country to talk to first responders, to talk to the families, to talk to those in treatment and recovery. We're talking to faith-based employers. We're talking to the health providers. The president and the vice president have leaned all the way into opioid addiction. He set up a commission that's headed by New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. That commission is bipartisan and includes former Congressman Kennedy, who's a very vocal.
Right, but Kellyanne, on that,
it includes Democratic Governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, and we are doing things to actually help people.
Commission, let's talk about that commission, though, because this week the commission had a hearing, and the experts who testified to that commission said that these cuts in Medicaid are going to have a devastating impact. Again, even the Republican senators most affected, Rob Portman in Ohio, Shelley Capito in West Virginia, say you're going to need to add far more money, $45 billion, to begin to address the opioid addiction problem. This bill doesn't do that.
And, George, I would point out that President Obama, through Obamacare and elsewise, poured money into crises like this. And where are we? You can fill up every seat in Yankee Stadium, and that accounts for the number of people who died of drug addiction in this country just last year, 33,000 of whom opioid related. It's a gateway to heroin use, fentanyl, carfentanil. It's all a big problem. And so pouring money into the problem is not the only answer. We have to get serious about in-facility treatment and recovery.
That takes money, Kellyanne.
It takes money, and it also takes a four-letter word called will. It takes a focus that it includes money, but it also includes understanding the difference between just interdiction and prevention, but also recovery and treatment. We have a lot more success stories now, even though no state has been spared and no demographic group has been untouched. George, money alone hasn't solved this problem. Obamacare spent gazillions of dollars, and where are we? We've got Obamacare victims. They came to the White House last Thursday. More are coming tomorrow to tell their stories. These are real people who have been left out of the system and who have been harmed by Obamacare because they can't buy on the exchanges. The insurers are fleeing, and some people got an insurance card and they had the worst possible outcome. They couldn't use the card. It meant nothing because their premiums had skyrocketed, in some states by over 100%.
The president also has problems on the other side from conservatives in the Senate. Set of problems led by Rand Paul, who's going to come up on this program after you. One White House aide told Politico that getting Rand Paul's vote is the president's personal mission. So has the president spoken to Senator Paul since the Senate bill was revealed, and what can he offer to those conservatives to get their vote without driving off the moderates?
As the president did with the House bill, he is working the phones, he's having personal meetings, and he's engaging with these leaders. He hopes to get to yes. We're very open. By the way, George, let me state for the record, the president and the White House are also open to getting Democratic votes. The idea that every single Democrat is part of this resistance and obstruction and not doing a darn thing to help their constituents who have been left out of the Obamacare coverage, who have not benefited, who have paid $3 billion to the IRS in taxes, who come to this White House and tell their stories, which are incredibly sad and totally avoidable. Why can't we get a single Democrat to come to the table, to come to the White House, to speak to the president or anyone else about trying to improve a system that has not worked for everyone? You know, the Democrats themselves, many of them have admitted that Obamacare is a failure. 113 Democrats in the House have signed on to Bernie Sanders' bill. So they're admitting that Obamacare has failed. That would cost about $32 trillion. So that's another failure. But we've got a lot of questions, and we have no Democrats coming to the table. All four of those losers in the special elections, the Democrats, they all ran pretty much to keep Obamacare where it is, and
I will
they
ask
lost.
Senator Schumer about that when he comes up next. Of course, they say they're prepared to work on fixes to Obamacare if you take repeal off the table. But, well, you haven't taken repeal off the table. That's their point. They think repeal is going to be worse. But I will ask Senator Schumer about that. But I want to move on right now. We also saw the president for the first time this week finally concede that he did not actually taped James Comey. Here's what the president's tweet said. He said, with all the recently reported electronic surveillance, intercepts, unmasking, and illegal leaking of information, I have no idea whether there are tapes or recordings of my conversations with James Comey, but I did not make and do not have any such recordings. So that's clear. The president said he did not tape James Comey, but I'm confused by the top part of that tape. Does the president have any evidence at all that his personal conversations were somehow taped? And has he asked the intelligence agencies for that evidence?
In that tweet, the president is making clear, as he often does on social media, George, that he's leaving over the possibility that it could have happened. Why do we know this? Because you know the conversations he had with the heads of Mexico and Australia were leaked
but
early in his
Kellyanne, that's why I wonder, he's
administration.
leaving open the possibility. He's the president of the United States. He can ask the intelligence agencies. He can ask the National Security Agency. He can ask the CIA. Has he asked them? Does he have any evidence?
So the president has made very clear, as Director Pompeo did on a different network this weekend, that these leaks coming from the intelligence and security communities are impeding
Kellyanne, that's not what I
progress.
asked.
But they're also,
I asked if he has
okay,
any
but it's the
evidence that he
same
was
answer.
taped.
He is saying to you, well, first of all, we have evidence that there are leaks, George. I mean, they go right to the media. We have evidence that Jim Comey himself wanted to leak a confidential conversation or three with the president, gave it to a private citizen to leak to the New York Times, trying to spur a special counsel. It's all the same.
Has the president asked the intelligence agencies if they have any tapes of his conversations? Does he know if they have that? Does he have any evidence to back up that suggestion that he put out in the tweet?
I'm not going to comment on his conversations with his intelligence community. Do you have any evidence of Russia collusion? Because Adam Schiff doesn't, Jay Johnson doesn't, Jim Comey doesn't. I mean, what are we talking about here with this never-ending Russian discussion? Now because they couldn't find collusion, now because it's the Obama administration that was responsible for doing absolutely nothing from August to January with the knowledge that Russia was hacking into our election. They did absolutely nothing. They're responsible for this. Nobody has any evidence of collusion. Nobody has any evidence that the president was under investigation for this, and now we're going to move on to hacking. I have a question for the Obama administration. Why did you, quote, choke in the name of one of your senior administration officials? Why did you do nothing? Why didn't you inform candidate Trump? I know you thought Hillary would win, but how could you not reveal important information about Russia hacking? When the president found out about it in January as president-elect, he said it was a disgrace. He believes Russia was behind it, but that he thinks other people hacked too.
Well,
I think the previous administration has a lot of questions to answer, given this Russian obsession by everyone.
Perhaps they do, but the White House did it. The intelligence agencies in October actually did reveal that Russia had been involved in the election, and President Trump consistently has dismissed that. It finally appears that for the first time this week he conceded that the Russians did interfere in the election. The big question now is for President Trump, what is he going to do about it?
Well, the other question that Jay Johnson, the former DHS secretary for President Obama, answered this week, George, is that the Russian hacking changed no votes. Everybody has said that. Everybody credible has said it's changed no votes. So let's make that clear. What the president has already done is when he was confronted with this information in January, he said it's a, quote, disgrace. He thinks Russia was involved, but that others are hacking too. In addition, he signed very early on a cybersecurity executive order and has an entire task force. They met just this week, and it's headed up by his Homeland Security advisor, in taking into account what foreign governments may be doing. That goes for Russia or anybody else who wants to interfere in our democracy. Number two, he has this commission on electoral integrity headed up by Vice President Mike Pence. They've been meeting. They're going to issue a report. The commission now has 10 members, and that's for everything from voter fraud here domestically to possible hacking by foreign governments. He takes very seriously integrity at the ballot box in all of its forms. But I have no idea why the Obama administration, except that they thought Hillary would win and it wouldn't matter, couldn't take action. Why they failed to deliver on such an essential duty. They had the prerogative, the duty, and they failed to act on Russian hacking. Final
question. Last day of the Supreme Court tomorrow. A lot of speculation about Justice Kennedy. Has he said anything to the White House about retirement plans?
I will never reveal a conversation between a sitting justice and the president or the White House, but we're paying very close attention to these last bit of decisions, and I can tell you one thing, just as the president did with Justice Neil Gorsuch, whenever there are vacancies, whenever that happens, he will look for somebody who has fidelity to the Constitution, who doesn't make up the law as they go along, and somebody who has the judicial temperament and a record that's beyond reproach, as did Justice Gorsuch. We just hope the next time we can get more than a handful of Democratic senators to vote for our nominees to the Supreme Court and to the federal courts. We'd like a lot more cooperation from our Democratic